I welcome you from all over the United States of America, all over the world, and of course, the New Home family of churches. I thank God for you all. Today, I have a word for you that really comes out of what I call the experience. And I think we need more messages that come out of the experience. And I know some of you are saying, well, what is the experience? The experience is life. So often we are preaching things that make no connection to us in terms of the real life that we live on a daily basis. But how many of you know, and how many of you can testify with me that it doesn't matter how many scriptures you may know. It doesn't matter what kind of religious organization you may be a part of. There comes a time in your life that it gets real. And when it gets real, you have to have a message that comes out of the experience. I want to talk today about what it looks like when your faith is blindsided. What it looks like when your faith is blindsided. You know, there's a story that my father used to tell. God bless his heart in heaven today. He talked about this little lady that would go and she would get the sick and shut-in list. And she would go to the homes, or she would go to the hospital of all of the people in the congregation that were sick. And she would point her finger at them and she would say, "You're not sick. The devil is a lie. Get up out of that bed." And people would say, I'm really hurting. "You're not sick. The devil is a lie. Get up out of that bed." Until one day, the little faith warrior, she got sick herself. And they heard that she was in the hospital. They announced that she was at such and such a hospital, and she was sick. And so all of the congregation got together. And they all went down to the hospital where she was. And as a chorus, they all said to her at the same time, "You're not sick. The devil is a lie. Get up out of that bed." And the little lady turned over and looked at the congregation and said, "He ain't lying today." Because how many of you know that it's a different ball game when it's you? We can tell everybody, hang on in there when it's your family that's falling apart, when it's your marriage that's falling apart. I can have great faith for you. When it's your doctor's report, I can have the ultimate faith for you. But when it's my report, or when it's my family, that's when it gets real. That's when your faith sometimes feels like it's been blindsided. Well, to blindside means to hit from a place where you couldn't see it coming. It means to hit from a place you could not see it coming, and at a time you would never have expected. Blindsided. When your faith is blindsided, it reveals the true constitution of your faith. Sometimes we can think that we are at one level of faith when we're really at another. We can think we're at one level of faith, but there are circumstances that will blindside us and reveal the true constitution of our faith. Some of you are sitting there right now. Your faith has been blindsided. You thought that, you had it all together. You thought that you were at one level, but something has hit you from a place that you could not see, and it has come at a time that you least expected. And now all of a sudden you find yourself here sitting on the ground, shaking your head because your faith has been blindsided. Now, you know, we would all like to believe that we are like the centurion who came to Jesus and said, you know, you don't need to come to my house and lay hands on my servant. Just send the word and my servant will be healed. We all would like to think that we are in the category with that man. And Jesus said of him, I've not seen such great faith, no, not even in Israel. But the reality is that more of us are like Thomas, who said, I got to see something before I can believe this. And when our faith is blindsided, we'd like to believe that we could be like that centurion and say, Father, just send the word, and at your word it's going to be so. But the reality is that most of us discover in the blind side that we're more like Thomas. Except I see something, I will not believe. It's found there in John chapter 20 and verse 25, and it says, the other disciples therefore said unto him, we have seen the Lord. But he said unto them, except I shall see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe. Now, there are seasons in life, and there are situations in life that will challenge the true nature of our faith. When you've been in church for as long as I have, and you've been in ministry for as long as I have, and for as long as many of you have, and when you know as many scriptures as you know, you'd like to think that your faith was, you know, but then you discover that your faith is, you know, when you're blindsided. I want to bring you to a text today where a man's faith was put on trial. And the thing I love so much about this text is that this man, unlike most of us, was very transparent and candid about his particular situation. It's found there in Mark chapter 9, verses 20 through 24. It says, and they brought him unto him, and when he saw him, straightway the spirit tear him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed foaming. This young boy is demonically possessed. And he asked his father, how long is it ago since this came unto him? Jesus is talking to the boy's father. How long has the boy been like this? And he said, of a child, or since he was a child. And oft times it hath cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Jesus said unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe. Help thou mine unbelief. He says, Lord, I believe, but this thing has blindsided me. I know you. You know, I love you. I trust you. I've seen you do it before, but it's real now. And I believe there's a part of me that believes I have faith, but there's another part of me that's struggling with this. Help mine unbelief. I've been blindsided. This thing, when his mom and I, you know, conceived him and she gave birth to him, I never thought that I would be dealing with anything like this. I've been blindsided by this. So, Lord, I believe, but please don't get offended with me. There's a part of me that is struggling, and I need you to help my unbelief. Now, there are three things that I want to share with you about a blind-sided faith. And I think if you've been here, you can relate to what I'm saying. Number one, it is completely, when your faith is blindsided, it is completely out of your hands. When you're sitting on the ground recovering from a blindsided hit, oh my God, and you're trying to get your bearings back, you shake it off, and then you realize that this is real because it is completely out of my hands. Your faith is blindsided when you are left without any options. And there are some of you that are watching me right now. You're dealing with stuff, you're dealing with situations and circumstances, and you don't have any options. You know how, especially we as men, you know how we like to live our lives. We like to make certain that we have 3 or 4 or 5 different options, So if this doesn't come through, I can pull on that. And if that doesn't come through, I can reach for this. And if that fails, I can reach back here for that. But when you are left without any options, when your faith has been shaken and your faith is being tested, and in your own natural capacity, you are out of options. Oh, it gets real then. It gets real then. When you have no power, you have no solutions, you have no alternatives, you have no options but to believe God. I remember an occasion where the people of God were being threatened by a particular army. And this army was coming to destroy the people of God. And, I'll give you the context, the full context. Ultimately, as the people of God always do, they won, they came through. God delivered like he always does. But listen to what they say when they realized that their enemy was greater than them and they realized that they had no options. Listen to what they say. And it's found here in 2 Chronicles chapter 20 and verse 12, which says, "O our God, wilt thou not judge them?" You mean to tell me you're going to let this happen to us? Listen to what they say. "For we have no might against this great company that cometh against us." No options. "Neither know we what to do, but our eyes are upon thee." This has blindsided us. We don't know what to do. We don't have any might, but our eyes are upon thee. And let me minister to you today. You may be sitting there and you may be in a position now where you don't know what to do and you don't have any might and all of your options have been exhausted. Keep your eyes on him. He's not a man that he should lie. If he said it, he will do it. Even when you've been blindsided by life, keep your eyes on him. Even when you've been, eliminated from your own equation, where you would put them up, your hands are now tied behind your back. You got to keep your eyes on him. Number two, not only is when your faith has been blindsided, not only is it completely out of your hands, but watch this, it hits you where it hurts the most. This man of our text, not only was the situation something that he could not deal with, but it was also dealing with his child. It would have, speaking as a father, it would have been far better for him to have been possessed by the demon himself than to watch his son go through something like that. But life has a strange way of hitting us where it hurts the most. And I know that I'm talking to somebody right now. You're sitting there and life is punching you in your most sensitive area. Your faith is being blindsided and you're trying to figure out how to deal with this. If it were this, I could, wrap my mind around it. But Lord, it's that. That's the very thing that, hurts me the worst. If it were somebody, from, outside of my circle that betrayed me and stabbed me in my back. But Lord, it happens to be somebody that's been up close and personal, somebody that I've broken bread with. It hurts the worst. But life will do that to you. And sometimes God will allow us to go through situations where we're eliminated from our own equation. And the thing that comes upon us is the thing that is the worst thing possible that could happen. And then God challenges us to trust him, even when we can't trace him. We have to know that his love for us transcends the pain of that moment, and that God will ultimately pull us through whatever he's allowed us to fall into. Because when your faith is blindsided, it hits you where it hurts the worst. If you look in the book of Job, chapter 3, verses 24 and 25, listen to what Job says. He says, "For my sighing cometh before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the waters. For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me." The worst thing that could possibly happen has happened. What do when you wake up and the worst thing that could possibly happen has happened? Do you throw in the towel? Do you give up on life? Do you give up on God? What do you do when the worst thing that could possibly happen has happened? Your faith has been blindsided. Job said, "The thing which I feared the most has happened." What do? If you follow the story of Job, Job said, "I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit right here in all of my pain and in all of my despair, and I'm going to wait on God." And then the third thing that I want to share with you, and I'm out of here. When your faith has been blindsided, it leaves you completely confused and torn. When you've gone through a faith challenge that blindsides you, it leaves you many times completely confused and torn. In other words, you don't even know how to feel. Many times there are seasons that you can't make sense of why you're torn, you're confused. It confuses you because you can't see why certain things are happening. Have you ever been there where you've had to go through a testing, you've had to go through a trial, and you've combed through your life trying to figure out what in the world did I do that brought this upon me, and you can't find anything, and it leaves you completely confused and torn. Your faith has been blindsided. If you look in Psalms number 22, verses 1 and 2, it says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? I'm confused. I'm trying to figure out why. Why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roarings? You hear me crying, but it feels like I've been forsaken by you. I'm confused. I'm torn. He says, oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not. And in the night season, and am not silent. He says, why have you forsaken me? I'm confused and torn. Even Jesus, when he was in the heat of his trial and testing, hanging there on Calvary, he even recited these words and said, Father, why have you forsaken me? Because when your faith has been blindsided and you didn't see that coming and it hits you in the place that it hurts the worst, it leaves you confused and torn. There are thousands that can testify with you today, millions worldwide, billions even worldwide, that can testify with you that it leaves you confused and torn. But let me shut it down with this. There are times when God, by his sovereignty, will step in and do what he does in his own way and in his own time. He allows certain things by his sovereignty, and then he chooses to step in by his own sovereignty in a way and at a time of his own choosing. So he'll let a Job go through all of that calamity and lose everything and allow the worst thing possible to happen to Job. And then he'll step into Job's life and he'll restore Job with twice as much as he had in the beginning. He will allow Joseph, that didn't deserve it, to be thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, put into prison unjustly, and then bring him to the palace overnight because he's a sovereign God. And there are times that by his own sovereignty, he steps in, does what he does at a time of his choosing and in a way that he chooses or desires. And so I know that I'm talking to many of you today whose faith has been blindsided. And I want to leave you with this. If you look in the 40th Psalm, verses 1 through 3, he says, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. He brought me up also out of an horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my goings. And he hath put a new song in my mouth, even praise unto our God. Many shall see it and fear, and shall trust in the Lord. I know your faith has been blindsided. I know it's come from an angle you did not see. And I know that it's hit you in a place that you feared the most. And I know that you're sitting there and you're confused, but if you keep your eye on him, and if you trust him, come on somebody. If you keep your eye on him, and if you trust him when you can't trace him, he's going to prove to be the God that he's always been in your life. Because here's the reality. You've been here before where your faith has been blindsided. And God reached down and God pulled you up out of a horrible pit. And God put a new song in your mouth. He's the same God today that he was back then. And I say to you today, it's going to be all right.